Okay, good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for logging on and joining us today and kicking off our webinar series for Leaving Cert applicants as well as post-Leaving Cert applicants. I believe this session is being recorded. Yes, it is. And therefore, it will be available to watch back at the end of the session. We'll email that out. Just to introduce myself, my name is Conan Meehan. I'm the Student Recruitment Officer here at Ulster University. And we still have a few people joining. Excellent. And before I introduce our panelists, I just want to talk to you a little bit about this webinar series and a little bit about your position. So this webinar series, as I've mentioned, is designed for any Leaving Cert student or post-Leaving Cert student who is considering choosing Ulster University for their college study in September 2023, or perhaps joining us next year in September 2024. But it is primarily for those who are thinking of coming this September. A little bit about the house rules. This is an interactive webinar. This is a chance for you to ask our panelists and myself any questions you may have about applying to Ulster, about securing your place, and anything else in between about going north for your college study. So with that said, please use the chat facility in this session so that you can ask your questions, whatever they may be, and we will get round to answering them. If you have not yet applied to Ulster University, but you would like to apply to Ulster University, there is still time to do so. So UCAS remains open for late application until the 30th of June. I'll be covering a webinar next Monday on applying to Ulster University and what happens next after you've applied. But in the meantime, you can submit a UCAS application, and provided that you can meet the entry requirements, you'll likely receive a conditional offer. So that is a little bit of options for you to have going into the summer, not just applying to CAO, but also perhaps yourselves at Ulster University. And also for most of the people here, you've likely already applied to Ulster University, and therefore I'll be covering this in great detail next week also. You're required to reply to your offers that you've received in the next few months. The type of offers you'll need to reply to is a conditional offer, and you'll need to make either Ulster your firm choice, your insurance choice, or decline. So if you feel beyond this session and beyond visiting us that you're ready to commit to making Ulster your firm choice, then you can do that now on the UCAS Hub. And of course, if you make Ulster your firm choice, that will guarantee you on-campus accommodation this September, which I know our panelists are going to talk about. So with all that said, I want to now introduce our panelists of the evening. We have 4 real Ulster University students joining us this evening to share with us their experience of going north, applying outside of the CAO system, and I suppose their advice for you as you consider what you might do this September. So first of all, we have Aoife Murphy, who is a dietetics student studying at our Coleraine campus, and Aoife is from Sligo. We also have Jack Myers, who is a communication, advertising and marketing student studying at our Belfast campus from Donegal Town. We have Sarah Bowen from Wexford, who is doing our language and linguistics course at our Belfast campus. And finally, we have Ben Malone, our 3rd year paramedic science student at our Derry campus, and Ben is from Dublin. So hello, guys, if you can all turn your cameras and mics on now and say a quick hello. Oh, there they are. There's the stars. Fantastic. Great. Thanks for coming on and joining us for this evening's webinar. How does it feel doing more work at 6 o'clock on a Monday? It's all thumbs up, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There's nothing rather you'd be doing. Yeah. You can't think of anything else you'd rather be doing, isn't that right? That's the PR answer. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in, and I'm sure all of our attendees will be curious about why you've chosen to go north for your college study. And so I'm curious as well. I know I've spoken to some of you before the webinar, and I know some of your reasons, but let me just come to perhaps Sarah first, who is from Wexford. And Sarah, you've come a long way. Why did you choose Ulster University, or why did you choose to go north?
There was a lot of talk in my secondary school. They actually did promote it to us in about TY that UCAS was definitely an option for us. And I don't know, I started looking into Ulster University because a friend of mine was looking at going to Coleraine and telling me all about it and how great it was. So checked it out, and yeah, no, I think it made a lot of sense because as everyone knows, the point system for the Leaving Cert went absolutely nuts over the last couple of years. And the course I was looking to do down south would not have gotten the points for. I'd have gotten it any other year, but not in the last 2 years or so. So the point inflation was kind of one of the main reasons I chose to go north.
Fantastic. And we're going to talk about points actually, and how they differ, and how it's a little bit of a different system. Jack, how about yourself? You're from Donegal, so you're not from too far away. So maybe this was a natural option for you, but why did you choose to study in Belfast or go to Ulster University over your CAO options?
Ulster University offered me an unconditional offer, so it was kind of like either go to Maynooth, which was my CAO option, or up here to Belfast, Ulster University. And then I was offered unconditional, so that's kind of what made my decision to go up here. And to be honest with you, I've no regrets. I kind of prefer up here, I think. I've my own society up here called U Dramatics. I've made loads of friends within the first week during freshers and mixers here in the accommodation. So it was very easy for everything, just fell into place. It was very nice, yeah.
Great. Ben, how about yourself? You're a dub. So I know you're a paramedic science student, so maybe Dublin wasn't on your radar, but definitely somewhere else was.
Yeah, so for me, I wanted to become a paramedic. There was the option of applying directly to the ambulance service in the Republic. However, it's quite difficult to get into. So for me, I wanted to gain a UK qualification, but I didn't want to leave far from home, and Derry offered me both of those options.
And Sarah, yourself, Aoife from Sligo, apologies. Aoife, why did you choose to study at Ulster?
It was the only option for me to do the course because I didn't meet the entry requirements for Dublin. So it didn't require me to do chemistry because I would made a very late decision into my last year of school to do dietetics. So I wasn't sure what I'd wanted to do. And I found out about Ulster and just went for it.
Fantastic. So let's talk about your courses then, and maybe how they differ from what might have been available in CAO. And I know, Sarah, you had mentioned the points race. Language and linguistics, I can't remember what you told me it went for in CAO, but what was the difference between... I was just going to ask, what's the difference between the achievability of applying to language and linguistics at Ulster versus maybe CAO options?
I had actually looked at doing speech and language therapy in UCC, which had been 520 points for as long back as the records showed for me in TY, and then went up to 570 something, 560 something ridiculous anyways. And I looked at doing linguistics and language, which is what Ulster offered me as unconditionally, similarly to Jack, as a way of getting through, but I couldn't find a degree like it down south other than doing an arts degree with linguistics as one of the 4 topics I would cover. So just doing the straight language and linguistics is the best way of getting into the course I wanted. And I was not gonna get the 570 points necessary in any way, shape, or form.
And I know there's quite a fixation on points and how they increase or decrease every year. I'm just going to throw it out to anybody here. Feel free to jump in. Was points on your mind when you were applying to courses, or maybe making up your mind about where you wanted to study? And that's to anybody.
For me,
Definitely.
certainly, yeah. Yeah, it definitely was in my mind way back in Leaving Cert. I was like had this 3 number in my head, And then actually once you sit your Leaving Cert, what you can achieve is something different. Like was way up in the fours, and I never thought I was up in the fours. So guys, if you are applying for places, don't be thinking putting yourself in a bracket, because when you actually sit the Leaving Cert, you will be so surprised at what you can actually achieve on that day. So do aim high. Like even if the points up here is maybe you don't think you can reach it, definitely still apply for it. You might actually reach it.
And your mock results don't define what you're going to get for your actual Leaving Cert in any way.
Ben, how about yourself? Points, was it a consideration? Go ahead.
For me, sorry. Points wasn't necessarily as important for my course. It was more the fact that it's the location or where exactly to study paramedics.
And Aoife, yourself, points wise, was it an issue for you?
Well, for dietetics, points didn't really come into it because I didn't meet the entry requirement of studying chemistry for Dublin. But yeah, for my other CAO options, I think everything I had down like shot up drastically that year I sat my Leaving Cert. So Ulster was definitely, I was lucky that I had it put down to secure a place.
And can I just ask to all of you, on results day, I know the last couple of years Leaving Cert results were delayed significantly. Did any of you receive your Ulster University offer either before results day or on results day itself? And was
Before
that a motivating factor for choosing Ulster?
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of a relief in one way. Like, kind of knew you had something secured before you were waiting on the results, unlike, a lot of my friends who were solely relying on that day to see what points they'd gotten.
Aoife, I think you were going to come in there. Or sorry, Sarah, I'm getting the two of you confused.
Yeah, I got mine an unconditional offer on the day that the UK results came out, which was a good bit before the actual Leaving Cert results. I got my unconditional offer based on my predicted grades. And that was a huge relief because I already had kind of figured out that I wasn't getting the 570. I didn't do too badly, but I knew I was not in the bracket for it. So it was a great relief to have that because I knew that if I didn't get it, I was going to go to Ulster. And yeah, I was quite smug because everyone else was so stressed, and I was like, it's all right, I've already gotten a place, we're all good.
Let me turn to maybe a different topic now. I think when people are maybe considering Ulster or maybe going outside of CAO, they might be a bit confused about the fees and finance situation and how much it all costs. And is it more expensive to study in the north? Is it cheaper? And I want to talk about, because I know you all have different experiences in the way that your course is funded. I want to come to maybe Jack first. So Jack, I know your course does have tuition fees, Jack, and Aoife, both of your course, sorry, Jack and Sarah, I'm doing it again. Jack and Sarah, both of your courses have tuition fees, but you're not paying those fees right now.
No, that's right. We can pay the fees back once you've the degree done and you move on and like work. So yeah, sorry.
So the cost of your university right now is pretty much free.
Yeah, I'm paying nothing at the minute for my course at all. Yeah.
And Sarah, that's the same for yourself.
Yeah, nothing, just paying for my accommodation at the minute.
Can you maybe just give us a bit more detail on how that system works? So you're both have a tuition fee loan, which means that you're not paying anything in terms of fees at the moment. How does that change things in terms of the amount of money that you have available now as a student?
Well,
Well,
it says it like kind of puts it like, let's say we have the money, right? And the money we wanted to pay for tuition fees. If you were to go down south, you'd be paying that for tuition fees and stuff. But then up here in the south, you can pay it for like holidays or nights out. You can save it to go towards other things, so it's handy that way.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm finding like what I'm paying for rent up here for the same things as a lot of my friends are getting in Dublin. I'm paying less rent, so I'm also currently paying nothing to go to university, paying less for accommodation. So I had more money than I expected going into first year when I was factoring going to Cork or Dublin.
And I think that's a huge thing because a lot of people don't realize that they don't have to pay their fees whilst they're at university, myself included. When I was a student all those years ago, when I was a spring chicken, I didn't have to pay fees either, and it still feels like I've got the education for free. I am now paying my fees back, but it's a drop in the ocean compared to what I'm actually earning, so it still feels like I'm getting it for free. What was your experience of applying for that student finance system? Or maybe, Sarah, maybe you didn't have to apply personally. Maybe it was your parents that filled out the student finance system.
I did do the paperwork for that. It was really not difficult. I hadn't been told by my guidance counselor about it. It was a fellow student who told me. So she just set me a fellow student from down south. She just sent me on the paperwork, and it's quite accessible online. But she just sent it to me while we were out for coffee one day and had it filled out in an afternoon. Really not that difficult because everyone is eligible for the actual tuition fees as opposed to it being means tested. So I didn't have to really prove anything other than that I was real.
So basically, your only cost now is the cost of accommodation, which we'll come to. But before I do that, I want to come to Aoife and Ben now because although, like yourselves, they're not paying any fees whilst they study, they don't need to take out a tuition fee loan because their courses are actually funded by the Department for Health, and that means that there's no cost to them at any point after they graduate. So, Aoife, do you want to tell me a little bit about that? Did you know your course was fully funded by the Department for Health? And was there anything you needed to fill out when you were applying for the course in terms of finance?
Yeah, so I only knew that the course was funded because like a friend of my mother's daughter had done it. Like I've heard it from very through the grapevine. But there was just no mention of fees or paperwork. I just showed up here in September and began studying.
Okay. And Ben, is that the same for yourself? Did you know the course was fully funded, or you
Yeah,
didn't know?
absolutely. So before going into the course, as part of some of the listed healthcare courses and allied health professional courses, which is listed on the Department of Health website in Northern Ireland, our tuition fees are fully paid for. So we knew going in beforehand that the likes of nursing and paramedic science wouldn't have any tuition fees. And then during your induction, your application, you just click the form that says your tuition fees are paid by the Department of Health. So it's very,
That,
very
yes. So that's when you came on campus to enroll,
Yeah.
you just reminded the university that you didn't have to pay any fees. A question has just come in, which I'm going to deal with just whilst we're on the topic of fees and finance, and it's from Roberta, who says, when I applied, there was no option for student loan, just student finance. So I chose self-pay. Can that be amended to student loan? So Roberta, I think what you're talking about there is on the UCAS application, it does ask you how you intend to fund your study, and there's various options on that application form. Um, I wouldn't worry about that so much right now. What you can do is that when the applications for student finance come out, because they're not actually out yet, and I'm doing a webinar on student finance later in the series, you can apply for that, and then when you arrive on campus, you just tell the university that student finance is covering it. So don't worry about the fact that you've already submitted your UCAS application and you've chosen self-fund. What we will look for when you arrive at the university is just that you have student finance sorted. But I'm going to cover that in the student finance webinar. The applications aren't open yet. So for all of you, your education is essentially free, regardless of whether it's funded by the Department for Health or not. It's free whilst you're at the university, so there's no cost to you. So I want to now come on to maybe our second topic, our third topic, and that's accommodation. Okay, so accommodation in the north versus in other areas in Ireland is definitely more affordable. I'm sure attendees might have picked up on the fact that when you apply to Ulster University, and if you make us your firm choice, then you're guaranteed on-campus accommodation. Were any of you aware of that? You're all living on-campus accommodation, right? You're not, none of you, except for except for Aoife. Of course, Aoife is privately renting, but for a very good reason, which we'll cover. But most of you, you're living on campus in a campus accommodation. Um, Maybe I'll start with the most expensive campus, and that would be our Belfast campus. So for Jack and for Sarah, give me a sense about how much you're currently paying for your accommodation.
I don't know what type of flat Jack's in. I'm in a single ensuite. So I'm sharing with four of the girls, and we should have a kitchen, our own bathrooms, and bedrooms. So I'm paying, I think it's £6,400 for my entire year. So not bad at all compared to what you're paying in Dublin, especially since Jack can confirm we're in like the ideal spot to be in Belfast.
We're
Yes,
literally 2 minutes away from the campus. Like, it's so handy.
And city centre is
Yeah.
it's like a 5-minute walk to everything.
yes, and if anybody had visited our Belfast campus, they'll have seen that it is literally just across the street, and the quality of that accommodation, the Belfast campus in particular, is really up there. But that's why it is the most expensive, but you are paying for the quality and the convenience of just being across the street from the university. Ben, how's life in Derry on campus accommodation? It's probably not as sparkly as the Belfast accommodation as we've had it a while, but it is definitely more affordable.
Yeah, so for my first year, I was living in Duncragan Student Village. It is the most affordable of all the accommodation campuses within Ulster University. You're looking approximately, and these prices are listed on the website, up to about £4,000 per year. So it works out considerably cheaper than the likes of studying in other university in Dublin, where accommodation would have been about 10, 11 or €12,000 per year. So there's a significant savings and the cheaper cost of living up here.
And were you all aware of the accommodation guarantee?
Yeah.
You were.
Yes.
And was that something that do you know that was available maybe in any other college in Ireland or anywhere that you were applying to?
Yeah. So when I was applying and originally looking at universities in the Republic, it was a lottery system, so you weren't guaranteed to be given your first choice or any selection on campus. However, the one deciding factor for coming up here was that by I think the 19th of July, if you firmed your decision, your firm choice for Ulster University or guaranteed accommodation, and that took a lot of pressure off myself and my parents trying to sort out accommodation. You knew that you had that sorted regardless of your results.
And do the three of you have the option? Actually, Ben, I misspoke. I know you're privately renting now as opposed to STEM. Sorry, I knew you were in your on-campus accommodation first year. But did any of you have the ability to stay there for the 3 years if you want? You do? Yeah. How about Jack and Sarah? Are you aware that you can have the ability to stay in that accommodation that you're currently in for the duration of your study?
Yeah,
I
I
do
think
believe
they're
they're
saying
like
this week.
mainly for first years, but I suppose if you apply early, you will get in, yeah, for your second year and third year.
Yeah. I think I was talking to someone who works in our building, and they were saying how 10% goes to all other years, but 90% of the accommodation is for the first years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But we got the opportunity to apply for accommodation there about a month ago, I think it was, just to reapply and get our names in for those 10% of rooms.
Fantastic, that's great. And now finally, let me come to Aoife, because Aoife, when I was speaking to you earlier, you told me you're not living on campus accommodation because you're actually getting a pretty sweet deal with the standard of accommodation that you currently have on our Coleraine campus, which, if for anybody who doesn't know, Coleraine is on the north coast of Ireland. Very, very scenic, very akin to the west of Ireland in terms of its just outstanding beauty. Maybe Aoife, you'll testify that, but tell us a little bit about your living situation.
Yeah, so I think being on the Coleraine campus is definitely more of a unique experience. There is on-campus accommodation, obviously, which I think there's 2 villages maybe, mostly first year. But I'm currently living in Portstewart, which is like just 5 minutes up the road from campus. So the houses I'm living in now are actually like holiday homes from May to June. So then, or August, then from September to May, they're rented out to students. So I'm paying just under €3,000 for my year accommodation. I think it's like 2,700 maybe. So for my 4 years here in Portstewart, I'm paying basically what I would pay for 1 year in Dublin.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I know the quality of the accommodation that you can get privately, particularly on the North Coast. I lived in Coleraine for a year when I worked there, and the standard of accommodation really is mind blowing because, as you've said, a lot of holiday homes along the North Coast, really beautiful holiday homes, that are lying empty during term time, and therefore students get the best deal. So there's a couple of questions that have come in on the issue of accommodation. Maybe I might pitch this one to yourself, Aoife. So Roberta asks, says her course is in Coleraine. Can someone please enlighten on how far Coleraine campus is from Belfast? Because presumably she's considering maybe Belfast campus accommodation.
I know a lot. Well, not a lot. I know some students, even on my course, commute from Belfast every day. There's a train station right opposite the gate to the university, so they can get the train in the morning. In terms of time-wise, I think it might be like nearly 2 hours. I'm not sure. I don't really go to Belfast that often from here.
Maybe I caught you enough there. I know the answer. So if you're going to drive from Belfast to Coleraine, it's roughly about an hour and 10 minutes. I don't know what the time on the train is. It's definitely more than an hour. And I suppose it would depend on how intensive your course is and whether or not you want to be doing 2 hour commutes every day, an hour there, an hour back. I would say though, I'm not sure what your motivation is for maybe wanting to stay in Belfast. But I'd say the standard of accommodation in Coleraine is such that you'd be getting better value for money on the North Coast. And another question is coming, says, hi, when will incoming students hear regarding accommodation for incoming 2023 applications opened last week? I'm not actually too sure on the timeline of when you hear back on accommodation, but maybe you guys from your own experience, particularly those who are living, Jack and Sarah, who's living in Belfast accommodation, how long was it after you applied for accommodation that you had heard back, and when, roughly?
Once I got my offer for like my course, accommodation just came straight with it. So once you received your offer for your course, you should get accommodation then offered to you, and you just accept both and that's you sorted.
I got the email from UCAS, and then I think it was the same day or the very next morning, I got an email telling me my room, that I'd gotten this particular type of room and how many people I was going to live with, that kind of thing. So within 24 hours.
Was that in a particular month or just as soon as you applied?
When we got our unconditional offers.
Yeah.
When you got your
days unconditional, yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so basically then, what I suspect you need to do is, number one, make Ulster your firm choice, because that gets you the accommodation guarantee. And then once we know that you're definitely coming, so that you've met the entry requirements on results day or a couple of days before results day, because we can, my daughter has a conditional offer and has accepted. Okay, so if she has already applied for accommodation, it'll likely be once we know that she's definitely coming. So I'll explain this a lot better in the webinar next week, but whenever you make Ulster your first choice, you're still sitting as what's called a conditional offer. Whenever you get your grades and your entry requirements that meets the course, what we're asking for, if you meet that, then you become unconditional because you've met the conditions. There's no more conditions to meet. And so it's only then that you'll be offered and guaranteed accommodation, because we know that you've met the entry requirements, therefore you're coming to the university. So I would say roughly probably be around August that you would hear for definite what room that she's got. If you have any questions in that, I'm happy to follow up with you an email if you wish, which I'll drop at the end of this session. So that's accommodation. Tell me generally then just about your experiences of affordability living in the north. I know you're all living in different locations, and you've spoken about accommodation. How about just the general cost of being a student? Because just going back to fees and finance, whilst you do get your fees covered, you don't get any maintenance in the northern system. And that's the only downside. So how are you all sustaining yourselves? Had you a bit of savings put aside? Were any of you eligible for the SUSI maintenance grant that you could bring up with you? and that's to anybody. I'll maybe start with Ben.
Yeah, so moving from Dublin to Derry, I think it's fairly obvious that Dublin's an extremely expensive city. So Derry offered a great affordability in terms of cost of living. Roughly, you could easily live off a budget of about 70 or 80 quid a week. So you could do a weekly shop for 20 sterling up here when it'd be considerably more in Dublin. Going on nights out, or going to the cinema, or going out with your friends, it's much cheaper. So for me, it was great because I knew I was coming to a city that I could afford, that was very student friendly. For first year, I built up some savings when I was working in secondary school, and then for my second and third year, I'll be working in the hospital part time as well.
How about for yourself, Aoife, in Coleraine? How's the affordability?
I think generally it is more affordable. It's probably not that much different than from where I was living at home in Sligo, but considerably cheaper than Galway or Dublin, obviously. And I was the same as Ben there. I had saved up the summer before going into first year, and I'd kind of lived off that for that summer and kind of continue that cycle, work for the summer and then spend during the year.
Would that be the same experiences for yourselves, guys, in Belfast? You had a little bit of money that you saved, or are any of you working in the north to sustain yourselves?
No, I travel home at the weekend to work, and then the money I make helps me for next week, and so on and so on.
Okay.
That's what I do.
And yourself, Sarah?
I had some savings and some help from my parents, but as Ben said, you really don't need a lot of money to be sustained up here, because especially since Jackson are saying we're right in city centre, so we don't need to pay often for buses or transport or anything like that. And so the shops are very little, and also it's probably not supposed to plug the nightlife too much, but nightlife is great here, and it's much more reasonable than what my friends are experiencing down south. And from my experience, when I go with them down south, I'm like, I could get this cheaper in Belfast.
And for Ben and Aoife, well, maybe Ben, who has lived on campus accommodation, is now living privately. Have you noticed a difference in the affordability? And I appreciate that prices have gone up sharply just even within the last couple of months, so it might not be a fair comparison. But have you noticed has it hit your pocket a bit more living privately?
It's actually quite comparable. It is dependent on your campus and the house that you're living in privately, whether one or not is more expensive. For me, I was lucky enough that it worked out just about a similar price as well, so it's quite good.
Okay, and Aoife, I suppose you don't have an experience of living on campus accommodation, but do you know anybody from your course that is living on campus accommodation, and whether your costs and theirs are similar, or maybe you haven't spoken about that? I appreciate that isn't something you bring up with your classmates, but
yeah, no, at the moment, most of the girls in my course are actually all living in Portstewart, the same as us. So I'm not aware of anyone still living in the campus accommodation.
okay. I'm just going to deal with a question that's coming in the chat from Luke, who asks, how many subjects count towards tariff points, and does it matter whether you've placed a course on insurance affect the chance of getting an unconditional offer? So first of all, look, you can use all of your subjects to tot up the UCAS tariff points. In CAO, you can only use your best 6 grades, but in Ulster and UCAS, you can use all of your Leaving Cert subjects, with the exception of Leaving Cert vocational programme. That's the only subject that doesn't carry any UCAS points. And your second question, it does matter. It doesn't matter if you've placed a course in insurance affect the chance. So I'm trying to understand a little bit about the question. Insurance affect the chance of getting an unconditional offer. You will receive offers, okay? It doesn't matter. No, so it won't matter if you choose a course or you pick a course as your insurance. You can still get what's called an unconditional insurance offer. All that means, the insurance just means that's your backup choice, and your firm choice is your first choice. And your first choice is where you'll go if you get the grades. That's where you're automatically placed, is your firm choice. Your insurance choice is where you'll go if you don't get the grades for your first choice or your firm choice, but you do meet the grades for your insurance choice. But you need to make Ulster your firm choice. You might have applied for multiple Ulster courses. At least one of them needs to be your firm choice in order to get the accommodation guarantee. So again, your insurance choice is simply that's your backup. You can still receive an unconditional offer for your insurance choice. If that's still unclear, let me know and I'll try and re-answer the question, but hopefully it answers it for you. Okay, so what else do we need to talk about here? Tell me a little bit about then advice that you might have for anybody who has already applied to Ulster and is maybe just weighing up their options now as they think about and head into exam season, or anybody who maybe is on this webinar hasn't yet applied but is maybe curious about applying. So I'll start with maybe Jack.
My advice would be definitely do consider Ulster as an option. There's loads of benefits, like we mentioned. Some of them are like accommodation guarantee, points. You know, the points up here, it's simpler to get in. Down south, it's definitely much a lottery for accommodation and for points. Just once you do go up here, please join societies. That's a great way, and clubs. It's a great way to meet friends. Yeah, I think
Great,
that's
yes, thank you, Jack. How about yourself, Aoife? Any advice?
Well, when I was making the decision, I was in the position that I did not know anybody who had ever gone to Ulster. I didn't even know where Coleraine was. And I just kind of had to put the decision of picking the course that I knew I wanted to do above, location or where my friends were going. And I just that'd be my advice. Like, don't base your choice off, where your friends are going. If everyone's going to Dublin or, you want to go to a bigger city, I would definitely consider Coleraine as an option. It's such a nice campus and it's definitely a more unique experience, I think, than going to the big cities. Like, being right on the coast is just, it's beautiful. There's so many things to do.
And tell me this, do any of you go home often? Maybe you're
every
trying to go
weekend. Yeah,
every
every weekend. Yeah.
well, Jack, you've got a part-time job, so if you didn't go home, then you wouldn't have a
Yeah.
job.
Didn't miss out on me. Yeah.
How about yourself, Sarah? You're Wexford, quite the trek.
Yeah, it's can be a bit difficult because I get the train. I don't drive, so it's like if you're driving, it's only 3.5 hours to and fro two, but it can be up to 7 hours for me, depending on how the trains line up. So I only go home on holidays and things like that. But what's handy is the train takes to Dublin about 2 hours. So sometimes I meet family or friends up in Dublin, and just as convenient, to be honest. I might meet them every couple of weeks.
And Sarah, any advice for anybody on this webinar considering Ulster or maybe thinking about going north?
To kind of piggyback on Aoife's point, don't go, oh, well, all my friends are going somewhere. Me and all my friends went to completely different colleges and campuses and things like that, and we're still hanging in there. And also, as Jack said, you're going to meet lots of people. Ulster's really good at trying to push people together and try and make friends. And there's mixers, there's freshers, there's loads of things. I think I'm a lot happier from talking to people that I know than a lot of them are in their own universities and courses. So I would just take that into consideration. I think I'm having a better experience than a lot of them, especially in Dublin, because of the stress of having to talk about rent and cost of living and things like that. So I would definitely consider your overall happiness over 3 or 4 years of your degree.
And finally, Ben, any advice?
My advice is, well, look, if you're already here in the webinar, you're definitely halfway there to considering applying. But go and visit the campus. If you're looking at the Derry, Coleraine, or indeed the Belfast campus, go and visit it and see what you think the campus is like, what your feel for the campus is. Have a chat with students like us now. This is your opportunity to see what life is like, get a real insight into living up here. For me, it was a no-brainer. Absolutely, I love it. It's the best decision I've ever made. And I think it's fairly obvious. I always go ramble on about how brilliant it is, and I genuinely do love it. But go and visit the campus, go talk to students, because that's where you're going to get the best feel and vibe for whether you want to go and study here.
Fantastic, guys. Okay, I'm going to turn to your questions now, the attendees of the webinar. If you have any questions for our panelists, please use the chat facility, or if you're able to turn your mics on, then you can ask them verbally. So now over the next couple of minutes, we'll just take some of your questions. So get them in, and our panelists are ready to answer. Just whilst we're waiting for questions, I had a question that has now absolutely escaped me. Yes, sorry, it was about your plans after graduation. I think a lot of people are under the illusion that if you study in the North or the UK, then you have to work there. And obviously that's not the case. You can zip immediately back to Dublin or to Sligo or wherever you're from. What are your guys' plans after graduation? I know some of you are only in your first year, but so I'll maybe ask Ben, who's your final year, right, Ben?
I've just finished second year there now.
Second year, okay.
So my plan is to stay in Derry and stay within Northern Ireland and work as a paramedic. The one great thing about this degree is that it's internationally recognised. It's a HCPC approved, which is our governing body. So I can take my qualification, I can travel to anywhere in the world, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, America, around Europe and EU as well. I can also bring it down south if I want, and it'll be recognised as well. But for me, I'm happy enough to stay up in Derry and start working away. All
right, you'll be kicking about for a while. I know, Ben, you told me that because you'll have studied in the north and hopefully graduate if you behave yourself for the next year or so.
Yep.
That when you return to work in the HSE, if you ever do, that you'll be recognised as a more advanced paramedic. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's just a title difference, but in terms of the training that you receive within the UK and within Northern Ireland, after a year or two working as a paramedic up here, you'll be recognised as a FEC advanced paramedic. So you're getting that additional training, that additional skill set. So it's a great benefit to come up and study here.
Okay, questions are coming on, but before I take them, I'll ask the same question of Aoife. Aoife, what your plans after graduation? I know it's a couple of years away. I can't remember. I asked you this earlier, but I can't remember your answer. So, what are your plans?
So I am kind of in my final year this year academically. So my fourth year is a full year of work placement, and then after that it's a pass or fail system. So if I pass, I can then go on directly to work for the NHS, and that is my plan at the minute. But if I want to work as a registered dietitian in the Republic of Ireland, I have to register with the Dietetics Board down in the Republic. So that process can take like 6 months to go through, but it would be the same if I was to register in any other new country. So as I'm recognised by the NHS, I'm just going to stay and work here until I can work at home.
And that 6 months experience that you're talking about, or that registration process, that's the same whether you're doing that dietetics in the north versus the south? You would have had to have done that anyway, is that right? Or is it only because you're studying in the north that you have to do this?
No, so if I was studying in the Republic, the course would be recognised by the Republic of Ireland. It's because I'm in Northern Ireland, we're being recognised by the Northern Irish Board.
Okay. So you have a bit of time to wait before you can return and practice? Yeah. Okay. A question has come in, something similar from Luke, asking if he studies law with Ulster, the degree doesn't qualify down south. If I study in law with Ulster, the degree doesn't qualify down south. Are there any workarounds or exams? So our law degrees are recognised by this the King's Inn Society as well as the Bar Council of Ireland. Like Aoife's course, there is an additional requirement. Now, it's not 6 months long, but it's an extra module that you'll do whilst you're with us at Ulster University. I can't remember what the name of the module is, but we build that in if you express a desire to work in the Republic, register or train as a solicitor or a barrister immediately after graduation. So there is an additional component to some courses. Usually it's not that, it's not that tenuous or laborious. It actually is quite straightforward. So that for law anyway, it's an extra module. Adele asks, when the course is funded by the health department, are there any repercussions for leaving the UK straight away? I'll maybe let Ben answer that.
No, there are no repercussions for leaving the UK straight away. The Department of Health has allocated funding for a certain amount of places on a certain amount of courses. They are funding for you to undertake an undergraduate degree. Whether you decide to stay in the UK or Northern Ireland after, or to travel straight after qualifying, that's your decision, but there are no repercussions.
I was hoping you were going to tell them that we run after them with a big net, catch them and bring them back.
Preferable if you stay up here, and I think if you do study, you'll eventually fall in love with the place and you want to stay. But if you want to go travel the world after, you want to go back home, you're more than welcome to do so.
Fantastic. Okay, who didn't I ask for advice? Sarah, did I ask you for advice? I can't remember. I think I asked you all for advice, didn't I? My memory's failing me. Okay, yes, go ahead,
Can I
Aoife.
just clarify the 6 months that I was saying I was planning to work up here? That's actually, like, it's a common misconception that it is that you have to stay and, you know, work for the NHS because they've paid for your course. That's actually not the case at all. That time period is just because the INDI are it's just known that they're very slow at processing the forms. I think they'd get a high volume every year. So it's just it's a waiting period on them rather than having to stay and work for the NHS.
Yeah, that's a helpful clarification. There's no barrier on anybody who has a degree at Ulster to work anywhere else in the world. As Ben says, all of our degrees are internationally recognised. If you're registering with a professional board, like particularly health boards, sometimes there is a little bit of a lagging process or additional requirements. Ben, is there additional requirements for you?
Additional requirements, qualifying to come back home.
Oh, yeah, I'm working the south.
Yeah, so if I want to work as a paramedic in the south, I'll have to be working. So technically, it's classed as an international paramedic. I haven't been trained at home, so I'll have to be working. And that's the same if I studied to be a paramedic in America. I'll have to be working for a minimum of 24 to 48 months before I can apply to sit on the register as a paramedic in the Republic of Ireland.
So for somebody then who wants to come straight back after their course and work in the south, what's their options?
Your best option is, once you qualify, is to work operationally as a fully qualified paramedic in the area that you have qualified or worked in. So for me, that's working within the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service for a minimum of 24 to 48 months. So you're looking at about 2 years. And then on top of that, there's an application process, the same as dietitians, to register and bring your registration over from the UK to the Republic of Ireland.
Okay, how about the other guys who they're not doing health courses? Sarah and Jack, I assume with your courses there's no real barriers? No?
None that I know of. Yeah, there's no real barriers. I'm American citizen, so I might go to America with it. I'm lucky that way. Like, there's no barriers. Yeah, no barriers.
So what you're saying is, Jack, as an American citizen, you can run for president?
I suppose if I wanted to, yeah.
Get your hat in the ring. Get your hat.
Yeah. But I don't think
Jack. Jack Myers for president 2032. Sarah, yourself?
Yeah, no, I would have no problem. My degree is mostly theoretical, so I want to get a practical degree in speech and language therapy, which I'm hoping to get in UL. So I would just go, if I got a high enough degree, if I got a 1-1 or a 2-1 or whatever the qualification is, I would just go and apply down south and there'd be no problem.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the course, but largely speaking, there is no barrier as such. You do have the ability. There might just be some additional requirements. If you want more information on that, if you've applied to Ulster University and you are concerned about that, or you would like clarification, get in touch with us and we'll answer those questions. So in drawing the webinar to a close, I don't see any more questions coming in. I just want to mention about the next upcoming webinars in our series. Next week, we'll be taking a look at UCAS. For anybody who hasn't applied, I'm going to do a very quick once over in terms of the application. And then for people who have already applied, I'm going to tell you about the next steps, obviously replying to your offers, but as well as that, what other opportunities there are in the UCAS system and what are the key dates. The week after, we're looking at fees and finance. And then finally, I'll be joined by one of our accommodation managers to talk about cost, booking process, as well as options. So if you have any questions, my email address is now on your screen. You all can see those slides, can't you? Yes, you can. Good. Sorry, I thought you couldn't there for a second. So my email address is now on your screen, c.meehan@ulster.ac.uk, but just for the avoidance of doubt here, I'll put it into the chat. So if you have any questions outside of this meeting, you can email myself. I just want to thank all of our panelists here today for giving up their time, and also to you who have attended for giving up your evening, particularly on a Monday. This probably was the worst day to do it on a Monday, so that's my fault for choosing Mondays. Hopefully you can join us next week and the following 2 weeks to talk about fees and finance at UCAS as well as accommodation. But that is it, Sinead. That is the end of the webinar. We'll see you back here next Monday for much more fun about Ulster University. Guys, thank you very much. And that's it. Cheers. All the best. Take care.